Hi beauties, you are highly welcome back to my channel. My name is Akurede Adenike. If this is the first time of you coming to my channel, please like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell for you to be notified each time I upload new video. In this tutorial today, I would like to teach you how to cut and sew this beautiful shirt dress showing on the screen. The shirt I'm making today is two parts, which is upper part and the down part, which is the peplum part. I have 2 yards of leather fabric here, which I'm using for this tutorial today. So as for this shirt dress now, I'm cutting the upper part first. And to know the amount of fabric that I'm putting on fold for my upper part, I'm going to use the biggest part of my body, which is hip, and my hip is 42 divided by 4 will give me 10.5. I don't need to add any seam allowance to it. I'm cutting the back part first. You know, this fabric is a little bit stretchy, so I don't need to add any seam allowance to it. So I will quickly put that 10.5 on fold for you now to see. From my shoulder now, I'm going to measure 35 inches from my shoulder to my above the knee line is 35 inches. So here is it now. I added 1 inch to it because I'm using half inch to join the bottom to the peplum, and I'm using half to join the shoulder together here. So from my shoulder now, I'm going to measure my chest line, and to get that is half of my round armhole. My round armhole is 18 inches divided by 2 will give me 9 inches plus half inch for the shoulder joining, that is 9.5. From my shoulder to my bust point is 10.5 plus half inch for shoulder joining, that is 11 inches. From my shoulder to my under bust is 13.5 plus half inch for shoulder joining, that is 14 inches. From my shoulder to my waist is 17 inches plus half inch for shoulder joining, that is 17.5. From my shoulder to my hip is 23 inches plus half inch for shoulder joining, that is 23.5 inches. And from my shoulder to my above the knee line is 35 inches, which is here, and the remaining allowance will be for seam allowance. So this is where that 35 inches is now. So the remaining allowance, which is 1 inch, is for shoulder joining and the bottom joining here. So my shoulder line here, I'm going to input half of my shoulder. My shoulder is 15 inches divided by 2 will give me 7.5. So from this line now, I said this 1 inch is for zipper allowance. So I'm going to measure that 7.5 out now, which is here now. I said the fabric I'm using is a little bit stretchy, so I don't need to add any seam allowance to it. So here too, I'm going to input that 7.5 on my chest line, which is here, to create my armhole for the back. So I'll just connect it easily like this. And I'm going to roll out my armhole curve with the curved part of my roller, just like this. That is my back armhole now. So to get my neck width, I'm going to measure my neck width from this line. So I'm using the neck width of 3.5 inches. My neck depth for the back will be 1.5. So I'm going to connect it easily like this with my pattern master, just like this. So, and to create my shoulder slants, I'm going to come here on my shoulder line, measure 1 inch from there downward, and I'm going to connect it slantly to my neckline, just like this. I'm going to input all my vertical measurement. On my bust line, I'm going to input quarter of my bust. My bust is 38 divided by 4 will give me 9.5 inches plus half inch is, that is 10 inches, which is here. So on my bust point, I'm going to measure the same thing, which is here now. On my under bust, I'm going to input quarter of my under bust, which is 32 inches divided by 4, that is 8 inches. I'm going to add 1 inch for that to it, that is here. So on my waistline, I'm going to input quarter of my waist. My waist is 34 divided by 4 will give me 8.5 plus 1 inch, that is 9.5, which is here. And on my hip line, That is 10.5 exactly. You know, I said my hip is 42 divided by 4 will give me 10.5. So is it here now? It is only 10.5 from this line, which is 1 inch for my zipper allowance. And on the bottom here now, to make it pencil a little bit here, so I'm going to deduct 1 inch from it. So I just measure it like this, and I'm going to shape it out now. I'm using my free hand. So this is my hip line now, and let me use my ruler for this side to make it pencil a little bit at the down part of it. So I'll easily cut it out now. I'm done cutting my back out, as you can see. So I'll just open my zipper allowance here like this. Going to open it up. So I'm using this back to cut my front out, but before doing that, before folding another fabric for my front, I'm going to fold my zipper allowance in like this and use pin to hold it down. Now I've folded the zipper allowance in now. So now I've folded another fabric for my front part. This is the right side of it, and this is the wrong side of my fabric. I added 1 inch to it for my button overlap. You know, I said button overlap that is on front is fake, so just to let it look like a shirt dress, that's why I'm adding 1 inch for my button overlap. So I'm going to refold it for you now to see how it's going to be. Now I've spread it out. As you can see, this is the right side of my fabric, and I want my button overlap to fall to the left side, and here is the left side of the fabric and there is the right side. So for me to show you how it's going to be, I will have to refold it now. So I'm going to refold it for you now to see. This is my left side, and I want my button overlap to fall to the left side. So I'm going to refold it. Let the left side wider than the right side by 1.5 or 2 inches. Just make sure the left side is wider than the right side. This is the left side, as you can see. Here is the effect, and this is the right side now. So just make sure you refold it and let it align on each other very well for me to measure out that 1 inch for my button overlap. So, and make sure you always get your measurements right before cutting and sewing, please. This is the 2 inches that the left used to be wider than the right side. So make sure you let it align on each other very well. Here is the left side now. I'm going to make my measurement. I'm going to measure it from the center now, that 1 inch for the button overlap. Now I'm done marking that 1 inch out, as you can see, from the shoulder till the bottom of it, and I've pinned it down. If you are a beginner, please run a stitch on it for you to move on to the next step. So let me spread it out for you to see now. So here is the right side of it, and this is the 2 inches effect that I'm talking about. So this is how it's going to be. I'm spreading it out, and this is my right side. So this is my button overlap, is facing the left side, as you can see. So easy to make. After running a stitch on that line of the button overlap, I'm going to fold it into 2, let the button overlap fall to the center of it, and I'm going to place my back on it for me to trace it out. So make sure it's aligned on each other before placing the back on it. Done tracing my back out on my front, I'm going to find the middle of this armhole line. I'm coming by 0.75, slant it like this with the straight side of my ruler, and I'm going to finish up the cuff side with my cuff side of the ruler, just like this. This is my front armhole, If you want to know how to draft it out, I have a video on how to draft dress, basic dress. I'm going to put the link in the box below. And this is my neckline. I'll come down by 5 inch for my neck depth. And as for my neck width, I've already marked out my neck width. So I'm going to connect it like this. I'm making 4 corners for my neck line, and I'm going to curve it a little bit here. If you want, you can leave it like this, but I want it curved a little bit at this side. So I'm going to cut it out now for you to see. I'm not cutting out my front. As you can see, it's very nice and beautiful. Here is the front part, here is the right side of it, and this is my button overlap. I'm going to remove the pin and run a stitch on that line of the button overlap. As you can see, I'm removing the pin now. Now this is my front part and this is my back part. I'm going to move on to the sewing aspect before the peplum. Here is my front part. I'll go ahead and stitch this place. I'm going to run a stitch on this line. After running a stitch on it, I'm going to spread it out like this and make sure I use pin to hold this one down before placing my back on it. Here's my back. Here's my back now. And this is my zipper allowance. As you can see, I'm going to remove the pin. So I will now separate it, place it on my front one by one. Here's it now. Here's my front. I'll just place it on it like this to stitch my shoulder. So it just be like this. I'm going to stitch my shoulder with ½ inch. So after that, I'll come and show you what's next. Now I'm done stitching on the line on the front part. That 1 inch that I measured, I'm done stitching it. I folded it into 2 and I'm done stitching the shoulder too. As you can see, here is it. So I want to place it on each other, both the front part and the back part, for me to mark out my dart. Here is it now. This is the back part on top of the front part. Here is the front part folded into 2 and my back part folded into 2. I'll now mark out my dart for you to see. On my shoulder now, I'm going to measure. Here is it. Here's my chest line. This is the back part. I said I'm marking on the back part. So on my chest line, here is it now. I'll just measure my nipple to nipple measurement from this line of the zipper allowance. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 7 inches divided by 2 will give me 3.5. I'm going to add ½ inch seam allowance to it. That is 4 inches. So I'm marking that 4 inches now. So on my hip line too, I'm marking it out. Just mark your 4 inches, your nipple to nipple, 4 inches out. I'll now connect this point now. Start connecting these points together to form a straight line. So I'm going to come down from my chest line by 1 inch. This is where my back dart is starting from. So on my waistline here, this is my waistline, my chest line, my bust point line, my under bust line, and my waistline. So on my waistline, I'm going to measure ½ inch on both sides. ½ inch on both sides. So from my hip line here, I'm going to measure 3 inches upward. So I'll now connect it now. From here, I'm going to connect to the waist slantly on both sides. And I'm going to connect from my waist to that 3 inches that I mark upward from my hip line slantly like this. So this is where my back dart is starting from, and this is where it's stopping. So to make it reflect on the second side of the back, I'll just hold it like this and dot. I'm going to hold it like this and dot it out. So, and to make it reflect on the front part too, I'm going to dot it out as well. For me to save myself from unnecessary stress. I'm done dotting it, so I'm separating my back from the front. Here is my front part now. So my front dart is starting from, so from my shoulder, I'm going to measure my nipple, my bust point, which is 10.5 from my shoulder, and this is where it is. So from there, I'll just measure 2 inches downward. So this is where my front dart is starting from now. I'll just make a dot on the second side of it. So if you are a beginner, you can connect it with straight line for you not to make a mistake. To avoid any silly mistake, just make a straight line like this, connecting to form a straight line from this point till this point. I'll make sure I dot it here too, connect it to form a straight line. If you are a beginner, make sure you do that to avoid any silly mistake. I'll now go ahead to my machine now and hold it like this. I'll just hold it like this and stitch from here till I reach here, but make sure on the waistline it's reach ½ inch. So you have to make all the necessary marking before stitching, please. So I'm going to do the same thing on the back part of it. Here is one of my back parts. I'll just move ahead to my machine, hold it like this from on this point and on this point. I'm going to hold it like this, fold it into 2 like this, and make a stitch on this line. Make sure it's reach ½ inch on your waistline before you slant it again. So let me go and do all that I explained. And after stitching my dart, I'm going to place my back on my front and stitch my side with ½ inch. So when I finish all that, I'll come and show you what's next. I'm done stitching my dart on my side. As you can see, this is the wrong side of my fabric and this is the front part of it. Here is the back part of it. I've closed up the zipper allowance side, which I will later open the zipper side and fix my zipper to it. So I will now move on to the peplum. To know the amount of fabric I'm putting on fold for my peplum, I'm going to need the circumference of the down part here and the length of my dress. So I'm going to measure what I have here. What I have here from the shoulder till the bottom here is 35 inches, and I'm going to deduct it from the full length of my dress. The full length of my dress is 45 inches. When I deduct 35 from it, the remaining one will give me 10 inches. So I'm making use of 10 inches for the length of my peplum. And to know the circumference, I'm going to measure what I have here. For here now is 18.5. Make sure you measure it out before cutting your peplum, please. So I have 18.5 here, and I'm going to minus it by 2. You know, there is front and back on each other. So if I multiply by 2, that will give me 37 inches. So that 37 inches, I'm going to divide it by 6.28, which is the standard formula for cutting full circle, because I'm cutting full circle for the peplum of the down part. So it will give me 5.8. That 5.8, I'm going to add it to the 10 inches, which is the length of my peplum, and it will give me 15.8. So I have 16 inches folded into 4 here. As you can see, here is it. Here is the right side of my fabric. I'm going to fold it into 4. So that folded into 4 will give me 16 inches, which is enough for the peplum I'm cutting. So folded into 4 like this for me to cut my peplum out. So from the center here, from the folded edge, you know, this is the open edge, as you can see. So from the folded edge here, I'm going to measure that 5.8, which I get from my 37 divided by 6.28. So I'm going to measure it out now. 5.8 from the center. So that's just it. After that, make sure you pin down your fabric if you are a beginner, please, to avoid any silly mistake. And make sure you get your measurement right before cutting or sewing your fabric, please, to make your job accurate. From here now, I'm going to measure that 9 inches, which is the length of my peplum. I'm going to measure it out. But at the same time, 10 inches, which is the length of my peplum. And at the same time, I'm going to add ½ inch to it for my seam allowance, because I'm using bias tape to turn it in. So I'm measuring 10.5 inches from this line. So this place is exactly 10.5 inches. Please do not make a mistake, please. So 10.5 inches. And make sure you have enough fabric for your peplum, please. So I'm going to connect it all around now, just like this. And as for this place, I'm going to add ½ inch for my seam allowance upward here. Going to measure it round and connect it just like this. So I'm cutting it out now. Now I'm done cutting my peplum, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and join it to the down part of my dress. I'm going to join it together. Let the right side face each other, please. It will just be like this. Let me show you. Yes, it's as you can see. Now I'm done attaching my peplum to the upper part of my dress. As you can see, when you get to the fake button overlap, make sure it falls to your left before stitching your peplum with it. So that's just it for that. And I'll go ahead and finish up the bottom of my dress with bias tape and the neckline. So finish up my neckline and the bottom of my dress with bias tape, as you can see. Note on the neckline, make sure this fake button overlap fall to the left side before stitching your bias to it. So I'll go ahead now and attach my zipper to it. Here is my zipper. I'm going to attach it to it. I'll turn to the right side. After that, I'm going to tack my button to it. This is how it's going to be. As you can see, here is it. I'm going to tack my button to it on that fake button overlap, but I'm going to leave 3 inches interval in between the button. So from this up now, assuming this is the first one now, the first one will be here. From that point, I'm going to measure 3 inches. 3 inches, 3 inches interval in between the buttons till I get to the bottom of the dress. So after that, I'm going to attach the desired sleeve of mine to it and give it a good press. Put it on for you to see how it's going to look like. So guys, if you find my tutorial helpful, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel to support my channel. If you have any question pertaining to cutting and sewing, you can join me on my Facebook group, Details to Sewing, created by Akorede Adenike. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Akorede Adenike. Please, I'm begging you, show some love by liking and following my page on Facebook at Akorede Adenike Sewing Tutorial. Till I see you in my next video, guys. Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye bye.